mandatory?
No, I don't think it should be mandatory. I wouldn't demand to be mandatory, but I would do everything in my power. Just like I don't think masks have to be made mandatory.
That's not the role of the federal government. That is the role that institutions, private sector entities, and others may take. That certainly is appropriate.
The unvaccinated overcrowd our hospitals, are overrunning emergency rooms and intensive care units, leaving no room for someone with a heart attack or pancreatitis or cancer. We've been patient, but our patience is wearing thin, and your refusal has cost all of us. We're going to reduce the spread of COVID-19 by increasing the share of the workforce that is vaccinated in businesses all across America. My plan will extend the vaccination requirements that I previously issued in the healthcare field.
Ooh, there's a divine intervention from Joe Biden, Alice. Apparently, we are doing mandates now. Exactly. Biden came out today and...
He made us do this, honey.
I've got to say, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure during the Civil War, Lincoln referred to the Confederacy with a certain condemnation in his intonation.
Mm-hmm.
But I have never heard a president really slander so many Americans in one, a big group of Americans, 75, 80 million Americans, a quarter of the country, with vitriol like this guy did today. He ain't a uniter. That is out the freaking window.
Oh, and the people on Twitter that like him think he showed restraint and he wasn't angry enough. I saw lefties all over Twitter going, frustration is one way to put it. It's not what I would have said. I suppose that's the more presidential term. There is a large swath of the country out there that's eating up this propaganda that if you are unvaccinated, they hate you and they want you to die. And they literally would probably just shoot you if they knew how to get a gun or whatever, because they absolutely hate people who aren't vaccinated because they're listening.
It's not just vaccinated, Alice. It's non-compliance or semi-compliance, all said. So it's non-maskers, people who are mask reticent, people who don't enthusiastically jump at the idea. It inspires them to be more performative themselves, just to show what a contrast. Look how masked I am, how voluntarily masked I am. We had T-shirts made up to go to this school meeting to show we're all masked and we really care about everybody else. Look how much we care. Then look at them. Look at this. We've been trying to tell you that there's trashy, terrible Americans for years, for decades. We've been trying to tell you. We thought maybe once you saw Trump and his people, his Trumpsters, the mouth-breathing moron, Trump racist, white supremacist trash, we thought maybe then you'd at least see. Now can you see? Now they're finally killing us. Do you see what gross people do? These people who We've had fun making fun of them shopping at Walmart, showing pictures of destitute Americans and having fun sharing it.
Well, right. You're exactly correct, because they don't feel that this is really just about the masks or vaccines. They feel, and you can hear them say things like this, that we've been putting up with all of you for far too long. You haven't let us have universal health care or fancy trains like in Europe. We never get to have the nice stuff. We never get the kind of country that I want, because stupid idiots like you keep voting for the wrong people. You keep being stupid. You keep being poor. You keep being fat. All the things that we hate because we're lefties and we're special and important and love people and have yard signs with hearts on them. And we think Black Lives Matter. You're ruining everything for the rest of us. But now you've finally gone too far.
Right. Now you don't get to play anymore. And remember, we saw it just 6 or 7 months ago. Remember when the government was telling us it was safe to take masks off? And we had a bunch of people on the left saying, I don't really want to take my mask off. I don't want people to think I'm a Republican.
Yeah.
That was the priority. No, I want them to know that I'm a good kind of person. I'm the better kind of person. We have better things than they do. You know, we're the kind of people who are saying to black people all through the country, I'm sorry things turned out that you're like that, when you should have the opportunity to be like this. So much better, which is what they were saying. Which is what absolutely they're saying. These people with Range Rovers and Black Lives Matter posters, they're saying that precisely. Look at them. They have to be like that. That's gross. You can be like this, like me, like all of us. We're awesome. We do all the right things. See all the colleges around, and we have science. We'll quote science all over the place. We're just better.
Yeah. So what exactly, by the way, is the logic of the whole mandate thing? Is the message like we weren't going to do mandates, but then you didn't get vaccinated, so now we have to do So the mandates, there wouldn't have been mandates as long as everybody voluntarily got vaccinated 100%.
Yeah, I guess so, even though Fauci was talking about 70% months ago. Right, but also it just shows...
Well, and we're at more than that because a bunch of people have had it. Most estimates are around like 30-40% of the people have had it. It's going to be more after the Delta wave is done.
We didn't do mandates, Alice, back when everything was much more dangerous.
Right.
Back when more people were spiking at the historic level, when tens of thousands of people were dying, when the death rate a day was over 1,000. Back then, we didn't do mandates because it was unconstitutional. It was an overreach. You didn't need to. And that was back, we had the thing in 2020. We had the vaccine in 2020. So January and February and March, back if you looked at the numbers, many of the numbers were through the roof still. Back then, we didn't do mandates when we had the absolute emergency. Now that the Delta variant is here, which is not as powerful, as deadly as the first variant,
right,
and we already have, more than half, almost 3/4 of Americans vaccinated, now we have to do the mandates. Well, why? You've completely changed the game here. I mean, the war is over, essentially. At this point, it should be mop-up. Now's not when you start nuking people. It's over. It's craziness. Thank you so much. That is great. Thank you very much. Good word. All right. Go ahead. If you can fill it for a second. Okay.
This is the whole thing with the mandate thing is that this is now done. The idea was we would get a vaccine for everybody that wants a vaccine, and you can take the vaccine or you cannot take the vaccine, but we go back to normal. As a matter of fact, a lot of people were dubious that waiting until the vaccine to go back to normal even made sense to start with. It was 2 weeks. That was the argument when people said, why are we shutting down the entire country over a virus? People said, well, it's not like we're going to shut down totally, until we have a vaccine, right? That would have been considered ludicrous way back last March. We just have to keep the country closed until we develop a totally new technology for a vaccine and test it and have everybody take it and everything else. People would have laughed you out of the room if you had said last March, we'll just wait to go back to normal until we have a vaccine and it's available to everybody.
Right.
Now we have a vaccine and it's available to everybody and we are still not going back to normal. That's what's so insane about this, right? What's insane about this is that everybody who wants to substantially reduce their risk of getting from and dying of COVID has the means to do so. Whether you're a person that believes in the vaccine or whether you're a person that believes in taking lots of vitamin D and zinc, everybody now has all the tools at their disposal to lower their own personal risk of COVID-19 in whatever way they see fit. Okay? And don't even start with me on kids can't still be vaccinated. There was just another big study out of the UK that showed that the risk to people under 18 of COVID is infinitesimal compared to vaccinated adults. You, vaccinated as a 40 or whatever, someone in your 40s, is at way more risk of dying from COVID than any of our kids without a vaccine. Right? So the whole thing is absolutely insane and ridiculous. We're at a point, and now we're going to start to go out there and get people fired. Why, Joe? Why? Is the economy so great for black and brown people and other marginalized groups right now? Is the economy going so well for them that we should kick them out of their jobs? Things are going that well. Is it that easy for, businesses to employ people right now that we should start adding more roadblocks and things they have to do and providing time off to get tested for things and whatever? I mean, the necessity of this is zero. The effect it will have on actually getting rid of COVID is zero. And because if people weren't going to get vaccinated at this point, they will get vaccinated, and Joe's going to exempt all his union friends.
Which the post office still is exempted.
The post office is exempted. The Federal Law Enforcement Officers and Agents Union just came out and said, screw you, Joe. Is he going to screw his union friends now?
The fact that the post office is already exempted, it just shows the lie. I mean,
Every
this is-
public
it's-
sector union that deals with the federal government is gonna, because they're mandating it for non-federal employees too, absurdly, all their unions are going to come out against it too. How can they fire people for not getting a vaccine and have the union stand for that?
Right. And they had said, like we've been saying, they had said, okay, we've got the vaccine and we're going to start to see the downswing, and that's fine. And they had then said a few months ago, just so you know, all of the marketing people got together, all of the tens of millions of dollars worth of marketing geniuses got together, and they said, okay, this is what we'll say. So we'll say to the American people, this is now a pandemic of the unvaccinated. And they came to us and they said, just so you know, and Fauci said it, Walensky said it, the idiot vice president said it, the president said it.
He said it today.
Right. This is a pandemic of the unvaccinated. And you know what the unvaccinated said?
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Okay. I'll die or live, or I'll die and not complain, or I'll die and complain, and you'll make me a viral video star if I do.
Well,
And that's right. And so the thing is that at this point now, and that, by the way, that just goes to the messaging and the messaging of this administration. Just think about this. We just played this administration who repeatedly said this back in the winter.
No, I don't think it should be mandatory. I wouldn't demand to be mandatory, but I would do everything in my power. Just like I don't think masks have to be made mandatory.
That's not the role of the federal government. That is the role that institutions, private sector
Not the role
entities,
of the federal government, etc. This just goes to show you as well that this government has zero credibility, and with very good reason. And it's just another reason right there. No, absolutely, it's not going to be made mandatory. Listen, you SOBs. We've lost patience with you. Yeah, we're going to make it mandatory. Now it's mandatory, okay? And you look at it, and just internationally as well, we certainly won't be abandoning our friends in Afghanistan, and my goodness, we won't leave an American behind. We'll wait every last day until they're, see ya, we're out of here. As soon as the Taliban said leave. So much so that the Taliban is under threat of collapsing because they've got too much stuff now, because we escaped too quickly. And so this messaging has been absolutely terrible from this government. In the last one, there's no doubt. And actually, I wouldn't even put that mostly to Trump. I would just say that the bureaucratic hacks and elected leaders have made people just not trust this government. So now they're coming back and saying, now trust us, we're going to scare you, now trust us. We have the dwarf guy in the white lab coat who's gonna say something to you and say, you know what, you just gotta listen sometime. And people didn't listen to him again. And it's like, yeah, because you keep sending liars to talk to us, and we don't trust any of you. And
It's
you
not
keep lying.
mandatory. It's voluntary
so
unless
now-
you don't do it.
So now it's F you. Now you're doing it. Now you just can't leave, is what this is now. So, oh, okay. So nothing ever mattered. Nothing ever meant anything, what you said? And you're right. I think it is now. In schools, etc., they've created, the left has created this entire universe. They are the protagonist and the antagonist. They only feel like they're the protagonist. The protagonist is a good guy, right? Mm-hmm. But they're like, no, you see, you sons of bitches. That's what they're saying. It's because you wouldn't wear your stupid masks, and because you wouldn't take your stupid vaccine, because you listen to stupid Alex Jones and stupid Donald Trump, because you wouldn't do that, it totally excluding the fact that minorities are not taking the, that's not part of it. They said, because you wouldn't do that, you stupids, who wear antlers and rush into the Capitol, and unfortunately have ruined boat parades for the rest of us who really like boats, but now can't go in boat parades because it's a Trump thing now. You disgusting people have ruined everything for us. And now what you're doing now is you're causing us to now have to mask up in school, and you're causing outbreaks in schools, which is now causing schools to have to go to remote distancing, which means that you're disrupting our lives. Look what all the things, how you're hurting us more and more. But in truth, it's no. You're hurting yourselves. Nobody has to wear a mask in school. No schools ever have to close. You don't have to do any of this crazy horse shit you're doing. You're acting it all out. You're acting like, well, look at this, because you did this in the Delta, and what, you're creating more variants, and now we can't get back to normal, because you can get back to normal. We should be doing normal right now.
Other countries are doing it. It's
Right.
not, I don't know any unvaccinated person who's stopping me from going back to normal.
No,
Like,
there's no, everybody can do normal
I
now,
have
but you've
My
convinced
unvaccinated friend
it's-
texted me today. She's like, are you like mad at me for not being vaccinated. And I was like, no, you haven't done anything to me.
No.
You've literally never asked me to put a mask on. You didn't close the schools. Like, I don't understand.
Right. And so you've, on the left, created all this construct, and because you guys run all the teachers' unions and run all these other institutions that overreact, and you run all the institutions that carry cameras and write media reports, you've covered it. You've scared yourselves into this lather now, and you're blaming other people. It's like the other people don't have a problem. They're just living, and they don't want an injection of something. And if you've been vaccinated, you're probably not going to die anymore. Congratulations, get on with your life. But they don't want to get on with life. They'd rather pick a fight. They'd rather perform as wounded birds and show how wounded they are by being put out so much, rather than just getting on with their life. They want to instigate and fight with conservatives and Republicans out there. Even Republicans aren't even doing it, even though you've got black and brown people who don't trust you either for incredibly good reasons. And so they just want to pick a fight.
And
now if you had, the only thing that could make it worse is if you had a president who was so toxic that he reinforced the spirit of this crap, which is exactly what this guy is doing.
We've been patient, but our patience is wearing thin, and your refusal has cost all of us.
Can you imagine that? Telling 75 million people, telling a fourth of the population, you're costing all of us. If you're not vaccinated and you haven't gotten COVID and you haven't passed the disease along, you didn't do anything wrong. I'm sorry about that. You're not complicit in anything. I'm sorry about that.
This is not about freedom or personal choice.
It's odd because it really strikes exactly at the nerve of what feels like somebody effing with freedom and personal choice. My God, you said yesterday that these people are all projection. No kidding. This is absolutely not about freedom and personal choice. Not at all. This isn't at all what that is about. Just hold him down and plunge something into his arm, please. Jesus. Psychos. And by the way, you asked before this thing, like, what was my big takeaway? My big takeaway is that Australia's here. A month ago we were here, and now we're here.
Right. And just the other thing that struck me of the Biden thing is the total, like, just ballsiness of trying to do this through OSHA. It's like the CDC thing. Oh, the CDC runs evictions now. You know, like, that's it. We gave the CDC the right to do evictions and be in charge of whether or not you can evict your tenant. Rachel Walensky is in charge of whether or not your tenant can stay in your duplex, right? And I'm sure gun control. I'm sure they're in charge of racism too.
Well, they're doing gun control now.
Climate change, everything else. But now OSHA is in charge of vaccination programs. And
totally.
I mean, like, because this is like what conservatives have been like bleating ineffectively about for decades, is that when you have all these crazy regulatory agencies with a bajillion tiny rules that can do what they want and make things up as they go along, that it gives the federal government way too much power over our day-to-day lives, right?
Yes.
And they just, in a move, completely proved them right, because, you know, someone else texted me today and was like, how can they do this? What's the law? And I said, it's not legal for them to force every private employer with a certain number of employees to get a shot. That's insane. I said, but I imagine they'll try and do it through OSHA and saying it's workplace safety, which is BS. You're not in more danger from COVID at your work than you are at a grocery store, right? Like, how does that have anything to do with your workplace? The percentage of the American population that's vaccinated is not a workplace safety issue. It's not like wearing a hard hat on a construction site or wearing gloves when you work with certain materials at work, right? Like, because they don't make you then wear gloves every day in your day-to-day life. You know, like, OSHA doesn't say construction workers have to wear a helmet 24/7, like at home with their families, but vaccinated is vaccinated all the time. Like,
well,
what possible
I think you're kind of wrong about that, Alice, because who runs OSHA?
The Department of Labor?
Correct. Who runs the Department of Labor? Think of
Marty
a giant
Walsh?
inflatable rat.
Marty Walsh?
Absolutely.
The unions?
Yes, this is. Now you've all been conscripted into the unofficial everybody union, and Marty Walsh is in charge, and they've decided, that's right, you're getting a plunge. That's a, and you're so right. And people talk about, Reagan used to say that government is not the solution to the problems, government's the problem. This is exactly right. The insidiousness of this regulatory body that now gets, because we're mildly adjacent to everything, because we require, you to put a little placard thing out when there's been a spill in the hallway. You're now intertwined with us, this government entity, so we now have total authority over you.
Well, right, and how can it possibly be workplace safety for, like, workplaces where most or all of the employees are remote? If you're remote, how does it have anything to do with workplace safety? What can OSHA tell you to do at your house, at home? When you're sitting here in our studio, like, doing your radio show in Connecticut from here, like, what does OSHA, like, would your work get in trouble if, like, a microphone fell on you because it wasn't secured properly in our house, and would OSHA come look into it? It's, like, the most insane thing. I'm, like, I feel like I've been insulted that they would do this through OSHA. It's so freaking stupid. I'm so angry at them.
What you're talking about is, the merely logic when there's any form of normality or symmetry, but that's all suspended now because everything's an emergency, everything now. So yes, the workplace now in COVID is, well, of course, the workplace is, my home remotely is still the workplace, even though the place is in Connecticut. The same way that my home workplace, it's social justice, is tied from my workplace into Connecticut. The same way all these things that are unrelated are now tied into the brick and mortar that is super regulated.
Joe Biden runs every aspect of your life.
Well, Alice, it's true, because that place in the Connecticut, that brick and mortar, somewhere they print out a check, and somewhere money is wired through states, which makes it a federal overseen thing anyway, into my bank account. Now I'm 8 ways to Sunday, a piece of property of the federal government, and everybody else is too. You're right. It's freaking crazy. And we have somewhere Congress, and we have elected representatives. This is how this whole thing works, is that when we formed the country, we said that, based on the population areas and states, that we could, based on a census that we all have to take, not yell at the census person, that we would be allotted representatives, and those representatives would be the direct representation of the people in our republic, because we can vote directly for them. We don't get to vote directly for the head of the federal executive branch, So we vote directly for those people, and they go represent us. Those people are laying dormant as these regulatory agencies, these big granite buildings in Washington, D.C., act as Congress.
Right.
This is effing nuts. This is nuts.
Well, right. And I just don't see, so progressives are happy about this, right? So, and I try and scroll through lots of different Twitter feeds and see what people are saying, because I want to see how different people are reacting a little bit. All the blue wave emoji people on Twitter are thrilled and think he's not going far enough. They're like, but what about, how will we make sure that they all wear masks? Can you make sure they all wear masks in school? Can you make sure this? Now do voting rights. Now do this. Now do that. Now expand the Supreme Court. See, finally, he's taking bold action. Okay, but that's not the people Joe Biden needs to win over here, because those people still think he did a great job in Afghanistan. So they're that's the diehard,
right.
He can do no wrong people. They love this. But, there's a lot of people out there that are already pretty bleeping annoyed about the Afghanistan thing, which is why he's doing this right now, is because his poll numbers are slipping, so he needs to take bold action, because the biggest place where his poll numbers have dropped are in his handling of COVID. And so he's going out there and taking bold action. Who the heck thinks that this is going to increase his popularity? That now he's going to be embroiled in lawsuits and fights with unions and freaking furious people on the right-hand side. If you want to turn out Republicans for the midterms, then sick OSHA on them. Really, I find that speech, the tone of it, I find the actions, and I find just the general attitude towards governing that it shows, executive orders and bullying OSHA and telling governors he's going to get them out of the way. It's disgusting to me, and I hate it, and I hate him. I don't hate anybody, and I hate him. I'm so angry at him. I can't imagine where other people are, but the people that I know that are applauding this are like on another planet. I can't imagine that like normal everyday people are like thrilled about this. Like the people that don't pay much attention, right?
What more do you need to see? We've made vaccinations free, safe, and convenient. The vaccine has FDA approval. Over 200 million Americans have gotten at least one shot. We've been patient, but our patience is wearing thin, and your refusal has cost all of us. So please do the right
all
thing.
Of us. Divisive SOB.
But just don't take it from me. Listen to the voice.
What more do you need to see?
We've
what more
tried
do you
everything with you people.
So, right, but the answer to what more do you need to see, the real answer is nothing. I'm just not taking it because I'm a free American. That's it. Sorry, still not working. You can make a bouquet of 1,000 roses fly out of your nether regions right now, and it doesn't matter to me. I'm still not going to take it.
I know
That's
what
what
will
more
happen.
what more I need to see is this. I don't work for you, and actually, we don't answer to you in Washington, D.C. That's not how it works, that we have to answer to you, that we have to go by what more do you need to see. We have shown on a bat of, like, I'm Tom Shattuck. I have an Allagash White beer here. What more do I need to see, Alice, that I don't need this beer? It is fattening. It's got booze in it. It's probably going to lead to more of these beers. You know, I'm already
I rolled
fat.
my eyes at you.
Right. What more do I need to see? But we're Americans here.
And here's Joe Biden like, well, let me call up your boss and get you fired. How about that?
Right. Exactly.
Like, that's a way to win people over.
There you go.
Everyone loves getting threatened with being fired if they don't do something they don't want to do.
That's right.
Great.
Yes.
That'll win you the election.
You see, Tom,
Perfect.
we got Tom Shattuck off the booze and he lost weight. It's like, yeah, he jumped off a bridge 6 months ago and there's nothing left of him. But I guess so. It's like, what more do you need to see? F you. God, what a lack of leadership. Here's the problem, is that we've seen you. And a lot of times, we're willing to suspend our own better judgment and defer to other people. And we've made the decision, because we've lived as human beings, that you're an empty-headed oak tree and that you're not competent. And I will let my dog, roll the dice for me and decide whether or not I'm going to get the vaccine. By the way, you and I got the vaccine, despite these idiots. But I mean...
Yeah, because I don't base any decisions on my assessment of Joe Biden's competence. Because if I had, I absolutely would not have gotten the vaccine. And, but that's neither here nor there. It's not about getting the vaccine or not getting the vaccine. It's about letting OSHA decide whether or not I get a vaccine.
Disney,
freaking heck.
Tyson's Food, and even Fox News. The bottom line, we're going to protect vaccinated workers from...
Even somebody in the room can't stop themselves from writing in even Fox News. Yeah. Even the lying white supremacist network wants you to get a vaccination, guys. Come on. So,
come on, how can you think I don't have your best interests at heart here? Even you, even though I obviously hate you, I still want you to get the vaccine.
The lying racists over at Fox News who all wear antlers in the air. All of you people and you dumbasses who watch that stuff. I mean, come on. All right? So who would ever say that? There's half the country right there. Even on Fox News, where they lie for a living. It's all lies there. Like, oh my God, these people are effing gross. Now I wish I didn't get vaccinated.
Unvaccinated coworkers. We're going to reduce the spread of COVID-19 by increasing the share of the workforce that is vaccinated in businesses all across America. My plan will extend the vaccination requirements that I previously issued in the healthcare field.
Wait a second. Didn't they offer us a bunch of carrots to get vaccinated? Weren't we all told that all the great things that would happen if we got vaccinated?
Yeah.
And all the great masks are gone. Throw away your mask. 100 days, I was told when Biden first started. 100 more days of the masks, that's it. I was told, and then that you can throw them away, and kids, back to normal. Normal's coming. No mask. Now we're dealing with towns in Massachusetts and Connecticut, which are now quarantining and doing remote learning again, and all kids have to have masks. All kids have to have masks anywhere. By the way, I don't understand, Alice. I don't understand. Melrose, Massachusetts, and another town in Connecticut have now closed the schools and are doing remote learning for at least a week or two. I don't get it. Everybody there had a mask. Everybody had a mask. How is this possible?
We would have been the only two people if we'd stayed in Melrose who weren't wearing masks anymore, and everyone would have been vaccinated if we were still there because we were vaccinated, and they still have COVID everywhere. They're like a COVID hotspot. It's like the most. I just don't understand. Is there any limit to like at which point you let the stuff you're seeing in front of you with your eyes influence your opinion of what's happening at all with these people? Or is it just like they absolutely believe everything Fauci and Biden say without reservation, even though it's like clearly goes opposed to exactly what they were told 5 minutes ago? Like, how can they listen to Charlie Baker stand here and say, if everybody puts on the mask for 2 weeks, COVID will just disappear? How can they listen to Biden say, if everybody puts on a mask for 100 days, COVID will just
how many
be gone?
How many of them do you think believe in the masks?
Of the like true believer type of people? Of people in Melrose?
Well, no, I know there's some true. I see. I don't know how many politicians believe it.
Oh,
I think a lot of them.
politicians or like the
politicians. I believe some of them believe it. I believe some of them don't believe it. I believe they think it's heft. Here's my big thing. Is that I believe one of the reasons we're seeing people act absolutely rationally, and I'm talking about elected leaders, professionals, healthcare professionals, people in academia, people who were once respected,
right,
but who really, gave you a pretty good look at their souls during Trump. I think that a lot of people are way over their heads and have no idea. I think Rochelle Walensky, when I look at her, I say that is a woman who is in her heart panicked and doesn't. This is bigger than her. Yes, they all got in to healthcare, but they didn't expect the Spanish flu to hit. And you could tell they didn't expect it because none of them were ready for it.
right.
And January and February were like, da-da-da-da-da. Yes, you can still go on a cruise. Go to Chinatown. Yes, you can still do everything. And then by February, they're like, holy fuck! Oh my God, we don't have any testing. We have no mask. We have no nothing. Holy Jesus Christ. I supposedly have a bleep load of credentials to handle this stuff. I don't know how to handle this. Do you know how to handle this? I don't know. Should we put on a mask? I don't know. Do you think we should? Somebody come up with some consensus here. Somebody, please. And I think that almost to a person, Trump was not one of them because he's missing the part of the brain that could ever really be concerned with this kind of thing, even though he got it, and was in a hospital at some point. His heart stopped or something. He didn't care, didn't notice. But I think that people just absolutely, certainly in the media, almost to a person, if you hang out in progressive groups and progressive circles, you're calibrated in a certain way and absolutely acceptable in that calibration. And you can see this from when Trump won the election and from earlier, from Bush stuff too. Absolutely calibrated in your Constitution is the willingness and the ability to totally and utterly crack, to become overwhelmed with emotion, to lose your mind for a certain amount of time and not know what to do. And all you've got there are the ingrained faculties of being able to enunciate and say things, say platitudes, repeat propaganda, etc. But I think a lot of these people are panicked. I think they're PTSD'd. I do.
Okay, but I feel like some like journalist and commentator class type of people made it through like 9/11 more sane than they made it through Trump and COVID.
Yes, I agree. I think that probably the difference was, at least initially in 9/11, there was 100% cultural
A consensus agreement.
Yes,
yeah.
exactly. And I think that made it so that there were fewer dimensions that you had to navigate. You didn't have to worry that there was domestic pernicious actors and groups that were out there that were looking to take you out as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it made it a little bit simpler, at least initially.
Right.
And also, that was, I mean, I don't know, maybe it did. That was that's like watching Santa Claus get shot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a holy God spectacle to watch that, yeah, and also it was literal, it happened. With the coronavirus, there's nothing as blatant as planes and fires. It's silent. People are generally fine.
Right.
You know, doing just fine. There's a lot of uncertainty. When you closed the country down after 9/11 and you had fighter jets all over the place and the FBI kicking in doors to motels and everything.
Yeah, I think it was pretty clear to most people that planes flew into the buildings and then the buildings fell down versus like, viral loads and studies and who says what about what things work and don't work and whatever.
Oh, totally. Totally. And plus, actually, if 9/11 had happened under President Trump, I don't know if it would be the same. I think that would also be, if it had happened last year, it would be a referendum on Trump as being the King Satan, and that
he would have caused it, I assume.
Right. And Bush almost, I guess, had that. I mean, people were still messed up in the head after the election, but it didn't take him long. It just took a few years before people went back to their corners and used it as Bush's Hitler. And this.
Yeah. Speaking of 9/11, that's another thing I'm just furious with Joe Biden about, that I can't look at the news without getting angry.
He doesn't want to step in the Taliban's party, Alice.
Because I'm having to simultaneously see the usual every year, but ramped up a notch because it's 20 years, stories about 9/11 and 20 years on, here's where people are telling their stories about their loved ones, et cetera, et cetera. And then the next headline down on the news page is what the Taliban's up to now that we gave them a country and a bunch of American citizens and we're not getting the rest of the people out or any of our weapons or any of it. And it just makes me so mad, that juxtaposition of having to look at, the picture of the person that died in 9/11 and knowing what the last 20 years have been next to the Taliban's rounding up women and throwing them in prison or whatever. It makes me viscerally angry. It's the most absolutely enraging thing. And now, did you see he's not going to give a live speech on 9/11?
Yes, that's what I'm
They're
talking
going to do a pre-recorded thing, and they're going to give a little non-live speech, no questions. By the way, how cowardly was it today that they had Psaki go first? And when she got asked questions about mandates, she just goes, "Stay tuned." And then they have Biden come out and talk and take no questions. So nobody gets to ask any questions about any of the mandates or anything else. No, we just announce it, and then you have to do what we say. That's the end.
If I were a conspiracy person, I would almost say that this was a tabletop concession out of Doha that said, okay, you guys, you can have your party Saturday, because the Taliban's having a huge party, not surprisingly. They just won a long war against the greatest superpower in the history of civilization.
A war that they started almost exactly 20 years ago.
Exactly. That starts on 9/11. So this is the great... If you're into parties at all, and you don't mind the off chance you're going to be stoned to death or lit on fire in the middle of the street, then Kabul is a place to go. But yeah, that we are not going to compete with them. So Biden's not going to have a live speech. So all you're going to see now is the Taliban 9/11 Victory Party, which features American mechanical war vehicles. Tens of thousands of Humvees and all these other trucks and half-tracks or whatever they are, troop carriers, airplanes.
Amongst the headlines about the 9/11 survivors today, one of the pictures I saw was, look at these Taliban special forces, and they're all there standing wearing our gear.
Oh, yeah, you're going to see that. Right, that's what you're going to see. You're going to see the Taliban marching in American uniforms, fatigues, and celebrating a great big victory that they're having. And will they make, executing a handful of American hostages who've been stranded there part of the ceremony? Who knows? I don't know. I don't know how high these guys get off of whatever it is, rat dung they smoke or whatever they do. But they do take a lot of drugs, so who knows? And I think it's repulsive. But in the same way, you've got the guy. How does a guy who broke the war on terror and lost it for America show his face on that day. I'm sorry.
Yeah, he's
The
too cowardly
Taliban-
to show his face. He's too scared of the American people.
He's certainly not going to go in front of any of them, because you heard the reception he got in Long Island in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
The people took 9/11 seriously in that part of the world for obvious reasons, and Biden wants to be no part. I mean, why do you?
Mm-hmm. Here's a headline from ABC News Politics. The U.S. has not seen evidence that the Taliban's newly formed government will be as inclusive as promised.
What?
And it appears to be more of the same with many of the same actors, according to Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin. I almost called him Lloyd Taliban, which would be appropriate.
They don't want to be associated with him. They're like, this pussy? No, don't say he's got anything to do with us.
So, but I mean, like, between this and the vaccine, like, what's the constituency of this other than people that just are like true believer hardcore lefties? What's the constituency for this presidency? Who right now is sitting at home and saying, wow, Biden's doing a great job?
Somebody who is a college graduate, somebody who's making a good living, and probably has a good 401k, somebody who gets a lot, still watches Saturday Night Live, still thinks it's really funny and moving when they cry instead of doing funny things. Somebody who thinks Stephen Colbert is a genius and a prolific thinker.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody with a small brain. I mean, that's what I think. Is somebody who votes for the person and not the office, and who thinks it's great that Obama had people at his place for Martha's Vineyard, and that was really cool. And
but motorcycle rallies.
And somebody who's really right, yes, and somebody who's really into the Black Lives Matter movement and thinks it's wonderful, and has the lawn sign, and is absolutely in a panic when somebody mentions the prospect of affordable housing coming into the neighborhood, or that low property taxes might invite people from poor neighborhoods to move in. Mm-hmm. I think that's the elite Americans. That's it. That's it. Who hate the country and feel that there's a certain sophistication in decrying this country, and that's it. They hate much more than they love. They pretend to love, but they don't. They're just assholes.
Yeah. I don't know.
That's what we are.
I don't know. I mean, like, I know that this is way overdone, but, like, imagine if Trump had come out and said he was going to use OSHA to do whatever preferred policy he wanted to do on people.
Well, here's the problem, Alice, is that now, since they're now using OSHA to do this, to compel people to get medical treatments, everybody to get medical treatments,
right,
is that the next thing. Remember how radical putting young college students, men, in front of tribunals to decide their guilt during rape tribunals, which oftentimes didn't include them facing their accuser, didn't include them even knowing about the charges, the specifics of the charges. A lot of times precluded them from even having a defense, and their lives being destroyed. And that largely ended because these students sued the holy bleep out of these colleges. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's the way this thing ends too. But can you imagine that? Us bureaucrats, demand that you guys all get this done to you physically. Even though the virus is not what it was anymore. It's not nearly at the level that it was anymore. And mostly because people are just scared out of their heads and petrified of their own shadows because we've been PTSD because of the last year and a half. Because we're panicking, you have to get something injected by you or you lose your job. We love you so much that we're willing to destroy your life for something that really is not that much of a risk to you.
Yeah, I mean, it's insane behavior, but it's insane behavior with enormous power behind it. Right?
Yeah.
And that's what, everybody's been complaining about. I mean, Obama had his pen and phone presidency. And then the same people were upset that Trump was being a dictator and doing XYZ and going around Congress. Trump did nothing, really, comparatively. Biden shows up, and he's like Mr. Executive Order, Mr. Just do everything without needing Congress or the judges to do anything. You know, he just does whatever he feels like. I mean, come on. The CDC gets to be in charge of landlord-tenant law. Mm-hmm. OSHA is in charge of your medical decisions.
Well, what he's done essentially is make the Supreme Court act as Congress.
Right. So the Supreme Court has to come in and be like, now, you don't really have the right to do this. But like, I don't see how this will hold up legally, but the problem is that it goes beyond that because these employers aren't going to want to be hassled while they wait to find out if it goes through legally.
Right. No, they don't want the dear colleague letters.
They're allergic to risk, so they're going to sit here and say, you know, like, whatever, let's just do a vaccine mandate internally anyway. The internal vaccine mandates at the companies are probably going to stay even after this stupid rule goes away. You know, and you can't, like, work around it. What do you do?
Some of these companies have whole compliance departments.
Right.
Rooms full of lawyers just to keep the government at bay. No, absolutely.
Right,
the vast majority of Americans are doing the right thing. Nearly 3/4 of the eligible have gotten at least one shot, but 1/4 has not gotten any.
That sounds pretty good to me. Can we get back with our lives then? Is that fine?
That's nearly 80 million Americans not vaccinated. And a country as large as ours, that's 25% minority. That 25% can cause a lot of damage, and they are.
It's the 25% causing a lot of damage, and they are. It's not the pandemic. It's not the coronavirus. It's not the idiot with his pangolins, you know, or the guy who funded the idiots and their pangolins. No, it's not none of those things. It's people who are just trying to be left alone and work for a living. Now you're the cause of the damage because vaccines and masks.
Because you're sitting at your house remote working and you didn't get a shot. You caused all this.
Yes.
It's your fault.
Vaccinated overcrowd our hospitals, or overrunning emergency rooms and intensive care units, leaving no room for someone with a heart attack or pancreatitis or cancer.
This is hyperbole, by the way. Mm-hmm. Pretty damn irresponsible thing to say as a broad generality, that there's no room for cancer or heart attacks or pancreatitis.
Yeah, some people might say that it's not a good idea to discourage people from seeking medical care because there's no room for them at the hospital, even though there is. That lying to people and telling them they're not going to be able to get medical care because of that guy over there who did nothing to you and is just sitting in his house is, dangerous and divisive rhetoric for absolutely no reason.
By the way, you say who are the people who still vote for Joe Biden, who are still behind this? I think there are people who were so loud and proud over the last 5 years and put themselves out there so badly. Like my friend that we talked about, Josh, who said when Biden misspoke about the tornadoes and decklers or whatever they are, who said, come on. Why are we doing stop? Don't dare do this. How dare we? After the guy before asked for bleach in the eye or something. It's like, because people, I think some of these people have been so deeply invested that it would take a moral character as rare as the Hope Diamond to be able to pivot on a dime and accept blame and admit that you were wrong, especially in this world of social media. To say, oh, by the way, I've not only been an a-hole and unhinged for the last 5 years, but it appears that I've been wrong, and my fix for it, my remedy for the last 5 years is even more disastrous than the last 5 years, and I'm sorry. Who's going to say that?
I mean, it's true, but he is more disastrous. How can you argue with it? How can you be mad at Trump for, what did he even say to Gretchen Whitmer that was like mean? He said something mean to Gretchen Whitmer at one point, and like, so then he got blamed for the plot that actually was mostly run by FBI agents to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer, and you have Biden standing up here going, he's gonna get Ron DeSantis out of the way. Like, well, what does that mean, you jerk?
That's like, right, we gotta get to that,
if you're a governor,
and all school officials trying to do the right thing by our children, I'll always be on your side. Let me be blunt.
Only we can intercede and tell schools what to do on a local level.
My plan also takes on elected officials in states that are undermining you in these life-saving actions. Right now, Local school officials are trying to keep children safe in a pandemic.
That's horse shit. They're trying to mask kids.
Yeah, imagine Ron DeSantis is letting some of you not wear masks.
Exactly. He's giving you the choice. And they're acting as if the kids are the vector. Since when? This is it's unscientific craziness. It's casting blame where it doesn't belong.
Imagine if Trump went, I'm going to get those governors out of the way that are standing in the way of my agenda. Like, who? There would have been an armed revolution by Antifa if Trump had said that.
All right, Alice, it's time
Speaking of Antifa.
Okay.
I was just going to mention the Larry Elder thing, but no.
Okay, go ahead.
Because speaking of Antifa and things that would not have worked the same way if they were done by the other party, a person in a gorilla face mask threw eggs at Larry Elder and attacked his people that were with him as he walked around in California, as he dared to exist as a black candidate for governor in the state.
I'm not sure, Alice. Is a gorilla a trope?
I don't know.
Would that be considered something, or is that a dangerous meme? Is that a symbol of hate? I don't know. I'm told that so many things during Trump were tropes, dangerous tropes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just invite everybody to imagine if Kamala Harris had a person in a gorilla mask throw eggs at her during a Gavin Newsom rally, how that would have gone. Because I mean, you and I watched the Covington Catholic thing happen, right?
Of course.
Where a kid smiled at a Native American person.
Well, right.
And he was, like, attacked.
Yeah, a piece of crap.
Reza Azam was going to punch him and all, like...
Well, also remember, Stephen Miller brought it up today. Remember, a few weeks ago, everybody heard somebody at a Colorado Rockies game say the N-word. The racist does exist in baseball, does exist, and he was calling the mascot.
Yeah.
Calling for the mascot. Well, now you've got real racism.
We went through Jussie
a white
Smollett
person
and
in a
Bubba
goddamn
Wallace.
gorilla suit now. And that does nothing for you? No red flags anywhere?
Nothing. They've seen nothing. They heard nothing. They know nothing about it. But, like, that's where we are, is that nothing means literally anything to any of them anymore. That's why conservatives should ignore everything they say, because it's pure just anger at Trump still. But
I would say get up there and push back. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Push back, because these guys are GD cowards at the end of the day.
Yes, and I'm hoping that the Biden presidency will end soon so I can stop being angry all the time. But you can follow us on Twitter at BurnBarrelPod, at Facebook.com/BurnBarrelPodcast. We're also at BurnBarrelPodcast.com. And Pepper, don't pull out the audio cable right now while we're ending the show. I'll be upset. Nope, stop. Love you, Pepper. Thank you.